and welcome to the Principal Advisory Council meeting, December 10th, 2025. Going to turn it over to our PrAC chairperson, Mr. Brian Ehrenberg.
Thank you guys all for being here. And at this point, I know we have a welcoming guest here, Miss Meredith Brewer. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. I'm Meredith Brewer. I am the Associate Commissioner in the Office of Educator Licensure and Effectiveness. Coming to you today with greetings from Dr. Fletcher. Unfortunately, he was unable to attend today's meeting. He was asked to be the keynote speaker at an off-site event. And so he asked if I would attend, participate in the meeting, and share your feedback with him. And I'm happy to do so. So thrilled to spend the morning with you all. I do know you have some new members that are here today, so welcome. And you have some who are going to be rotating off of the council. So thank you all so much for your service and your willingness to dedicate some of your very busy scheduling time to meet with us today. I do want to just remind you all that the Impact Kentucky survey, which is our working conditions survey that the department makes available to school districts, is open until December 19th. Currently, our response rate is sitting at about 62%, which is wonderful. But this is an opportunity for all certified educators to provide feedback on their working conditions. And it can be very helpful data for administrators to use as they're thinking about potential interventions in their school building. So we do want to remind you that that window closes December 19th. If your staff have not yet had a chance to complete the survey, please encourage them to do so. With that, I will mute my mic, but I will be on to listen and hear all of your conversation today.
All right, thank you very much. A couple of reminders for everyone today. I would ask that you all keep your videos turned on while you're in the meeting so that we can see your faces and have you participate actively. When you are asked to speak, you're going to need to make sure you unmute. And when we do motions, I need to know your name and what motion you are making, just to make it easy on everybody that's keeping track of the meeting. So once we have our motions in place, we will state agreement in the chat. So if you don't have the chat box open, you can find that, I believe, at the top of your conversation bar there, that you can open up to be able to participate in the chat. At this point, we are at roll call, and I'm going to do my best to pronounce every name correctly. However, please bear with me. I know we have some new ones as well, and so learning names is always a little bit of a task coming from someone with the last name Ehrenberg. I understand completely, okay? So when I call your name, please unmute and state that you're here. Jared Hankins.
I am here.
Thank you. Robert Lightning.
I am here.
Thank you. Lynn Petrie.
I am here.
Thank you. Peggy Sinclair Morris. Okay. Liz Kirk.
Present.
Thank you. Jico Ross.
Present.
Thank you. Jeff Blythe. Okay. Sarah Williams.
Present.
Thank you. Tim Klein. Amanda Noakes.
I am here.
Thank you. Amanda Fields.
Present.
Thank you. Martina Skidmore. Heather Roden.
Present.
Thank you. Hubert Schroer.
Here.
Thank you. It looks like we have some new members as well. Jeremy Kidd.
Here.
Thank you. Hikama Howard.
Jamaica Howard is here.
Jamaica. Sorry. Thank you. Jamaica.
No worries.
Ginger Estes.
I'm here.
Thank you. James Hood.
Here.
Thank you. Bonnie Spears.
Present.
Thank you. Josh Henderson.
I am here.
Thank you. Nikki Gearhart.
I'm here.
Thank you. Beth St. Bernard.
Present.
Thank you. And Jaziel Guerrera. Okay, if you don't mind, I'd like to take a minute and just allow some brief introductions from our new personnel here that are joining the committee. And so I'm just going to go down the list here and let you guys unmute and introduce yourselves briefly here, if you don't mind, to name maybe your school you're at and something that you are excited about in regards to this committee. Why not? Mr. Kidd.
Hello, I'm Jeremy Kidd. I'm principal of South Laurel High School in London, Kentucky. This is my 8th year as head principal of South Laurel High School. Prior to that, I had some alternative school experience and was a math teacher, coach, tutor, all the things. And I'm really excited about learning more and just helping out any way I can.
Thank you. Ms. Howard.
My name is Jamika Howard. I'm the principal of Shelby Academy in Jefferson County Public Schools. This is my 6th year as principal at Shelby, my 23rd year in Jefferson County Public Schools. I've been a teacher, a counselor, and assistant principal in elementary and middle school. And I'm just excited to be here to see how I can continue to impact our Kentucky learners positively.
Thank you. Ms. Estes.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Ginger Estes. I am the principal at Hancock County High School, and this is my 8th year as an administrator here. I am super excited to work with lovely people and to also impact our student learners.
Thank you. Mr. Hood.
I'm James Hood. I am the principal at Rodburn Elementary in Rowan County. This is also my 6th year. And before that, I taught for 14 years at the middle school, science, social studies, and writing. And I'm excited about just the impact that I can have on helping move the Commonwealth forward.
Thank you. Ms. Spears.
Good morning. This is my 10th year in administration. I've worked at a K-8 school. I've been a middle school teacher in the K-8 role. I was an assistant principal and principal, and now I am just at a middle school. And I think one of the things that I'm looking forward to the most is learning from others, peers, and just to see what you guys are doing to be successful in this role.
Thank you. Mr. Henderson.
I'm Josh Henderson. I'm the principal of Elizabethtown High School. I've been principal here for 2 years, and I previously was a head principal at Cumberland County High School for 5 years. I'm interested in just basically having an impact for probably our learners, but also interested in collaborating with colleagues and build relationships with new people who do what we do every day.
Thank you. Ms. Gearhart.
Good morning. My name is Nikki Gearhart. I'm in Floyd County at Duff Allen Central Elementary. This is my 6th year as the principal, my 27th year in education. We are a school of pre-K through 8th grade of about 350 students, very rural district. I just hope to make a contribution to this committee and make some new friends.
Thank you. Ms. St. Bernard.
Hello, good morning. I am Beth St. Bernard. I'm the principal at the Spencer County Early Learning Center. I've spent about 15 of my 20 years of education in Spencer County as a elementary school teacher, instructional coach, and assistant principal. I had about a year as the director of state and federal programs in Spencer County, and then I went to take an administrative position outside of Washington, D.C. for a couple of years. So this is my second year back in Spencer County. I am, like Bonnie said, I'm interested in hearing lots of great things, how you guys are being successful. So networking and then just bringing the voice of early learning to the advisory group.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
I'm sorry, who was that?
Hey, this is Hasiel Guerra. I'm sorry, my mic wasn't working earlier.
I sure can hear you now. Yes.
Yeah, hey, just will introduce myself real quick. From Mercer County. This is my 12th year administration. I've had experience at the high school level, alternative experience as well. Now currently at the elementary level. Had 1 year in central office, did that for a year. Like it, so got back into the building, love this. I'm excited to be collaborating with you all. Thank you for allowing me to get my microphone working and getting to share with you all.
No worries. I appreciate you speaking up. I don't want anybody to be left out. I don't think I left anybody else out. And so, again, I want to welcome our new members to this committee and appreciate the work and time that you're putting into this. I know it's not easy speaking from experience. It's been a pleasure getting to know you guys and being on this this format, getting to talk to some of the other principals that are doing the things that we're doing. It's nice to not feel like you're on an island all the time. So I appreciate you guys and want to go ahead and move on to the next portion here. So we have some principal representatives with us, Mr. PrAC and Mr. Wallace.
So, hello, I'm Dr. Rocky Wallace from Campbellsville University, and I represent UPPI, which is a network of former school principals who work in higher education across Kentucky, and UPPI stands for University Principal Preparation Initiative. So Stacy leads this group with us, and we were invited to sit in to learn from you folks. So thank you for letting us be a part of it.
And I'm Nick Brake. I am a professor at Western Kentucky University, formerly was the superintendent of the Owensboro Independent District. And also, as Rocky mentioned, part of the UPPI network, which is a very valuable group, but we also value the opportunity you are giving us to participate in these discussions and stay informed and help to sort of formulate better practice in the way we prepare principals. At Western, we're doing a lot of stuff with more apprentice-oriented and partnerships with districts, and this work really helps us to continue to fine-tune what we're doing in preparing people to assume the roles of leadership in our schools. So thank you again for letting us be a part of this.
We appreciate you both being here, and again, the contribution that you're making to our profession, I think, is important. So thank you, guys.
Dr. Wallace, were you going to share anything about the white paper?
Yes, I'll go ahead and do that now. I just saw that on the agenda, Stacy. So real quickly, folks, our group meets monthly, and from time to time, we've helped KDE. We have authored 3 books as a group, and most recently, Dr. Brewer and Ms. Noah asked us, could we do some research of principals across Kentucky in terms of current needs. So that turned into a large white paper with former principals who are now university professors from the University of Louisville, Murray, WKU, Campbellsville, Lou Young at UK, and I think that was it. Anyway, 6 of us. So Stacy will send that paper out. She asked recently, could she send it out? And we are all fine with that. She's also going to send it to the UPPI group. Just in summary, our findings piggybacked on a recent research paper by CPE here in Kentucky, which was an excellent bit of research. So we piggybacked on that. We had 70 principals to respond to a survey. We did some focus groups. We did some individual interviewing of principals and superintendents. And just 3 or 4 things that came out of our findings. One was, and we know this already, this parallels with research that's been done the last 20 or 25 years on the role of the principal in our society. So we didn't really find out anything new, but we did find out currently what you folks are saying your most current needs are. The first one at the top of the list was your mental and emotional health. That bubbled up as an issue, and we weren't surprised by that. Something else that bubbled up was that teachers do not have as high opinion of how hard your all's work is as we principals do. And that's understandable because they have not sat in the principal's chair. Something else that bubbled up was the need for central office support. And probably most all of you all have that, but it did bubble up as something that's critical to have strong, healthy working relationships with the district office and to have support, including being in a principal cohort, either in the district or at one of the ed co-ops or with KDE. However, it's packaged to be in a group of other principals to learn and share frustrations and share celebrations. And then something that came out of the study was our recommendations from the UPBI group was to provide support as much as possible, the different agencies who do that across Kentucky. And we do have wonderful support across Kentucky for principals and assistant principals, was to not pull you out of your building more than necessary, because that ends up creating even more stress for principals. So that's a quick summary of what the paper shares. Dr. Lou Young from UK was a big part of this work. She did the background research, and Dr. Debbie Daniels from U of L, and we went through U of L's research protocol in doing this. So we felt like it was much longer than we thought it would be, but we felt like it was good work and could be valuable to you. So again, Stacy, if she's ready to send it out to this group, certainly can do that. And thanks for letting us share this with you.
Thank you guys again. We appreciate you. And so now the part that I know I'm super sad about, we have to elect a new chairperson. And in order to do that, we have to have a process that we determine as a council here. We did have one person volunteer that I know of, but I wanted to make sure that we were able to decide if that's how we want to proceed as a committee. And so I can open for discussion before we have any kind of motion to decide this, but wanted to see if we have any discussion or suggestions about how we're going to determine who the next chairperson is.
Could maybe for the new members, I don't know how it's been done in the past. Is there a history of how it's been done that has been successful?
Well, I can tell you the way it was done when I was selected. I think it was just volunteer. I'm pretty sure it was just volunteer. Ms. Noah, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes. In the past, though, there have been multiple people who have volunteered, and we had to end up, throwing names out there and having people submit resumes and vote on who's going to be our chairperson. We have done that in the past, but most often the volunteer process has been what's been implemented in the last few years. But it's totally up to the council on the process that you all want to use.
And you said there's already been one volunteer?
There has been, yes.
Oh, I'm fine with that.
Anyone else care to speak on this? All right, then I will entertain a motion to utilize the volunteer process for selecting a chairperson.
I'll move to utilize volunteer. Jared
and what
Hankins,
was-
Webster County.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Sarah Williams, I'll second.
And we have a motion and a second. And please state your agreement in the chat if you don't mind. And I didn't want to bias anyone, but that means that our volunteer, Ms. Noah, if you would like to announce that, you can.
It is Jico Ross, and thank you very much for your willingness to step forward and assume the PrAC chairperson responsibilities. So yay. Congratulations.
Thank
And
you. I
Mr.
appreciate it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, you're good.
I was just going to say, even though I'm stepping down, if you have any questions or things that you need, feel free to message me, email me, whatever. I'm happy to share information for our next chairperson here.
Absolutely. I will definitely take you up on that.
Okay. Well, now that we have that business out of the way, we will move to our agenda approval. And so I need a motion to approve our agenda.
So moved.
That was Jico Ross. So I need a second for that as well. And if you guys don't mind, please unmute and say your name and your motion, please.
Sarah Williams.
So I'm going to take Sarah Williams as the second. I heard somebody kind of talking over too, but that's the one that jumped out at me. So we have a motion and a second. So all in favor, please state your agreement in the chat. All right, the next thing we have is to approve our summary minutes from the last meeting. Though I wasn't here, I did listen to and watch actually the meeting. So I'm up to speed on where we were at. If you don't mind, I need a motion to approve the summary minutes. And if you need to check those, there is a link in this slideshow that you can click on to verify.
Sarah Williams, I'll motion to approve last month's meetings.
Okay, we have a motion. Thank you very much. Do we have a second?
This is Peggy Sinclair Morris. I'll second it.
Thank you very much. And again, show your agreement in the chat. This will take us on to our retention tools with Justin Edwards.
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to be able to be here and present to you all today. So I was talking with Stacy and the rest of the P3 team, and they had discussed desiring to have a retention tool for you all. So what I'm going to be presenting to you all today is just kind of a brainchild that I built based off my thinking, but I've also never been a principal, so I'd also like your feedback at the end of this. If there's something that you see that you think we should edit or change, I'm happy to do whatever. My big thing is I want to build things that are useful to you all, not just something that you all have to do. So with that said, I'm going to put in the chat the link to the retention tool, and I'm also going to screen share. So it's a little bit easier for you all to see what I am talking about as we go through. So you'll have to excuse the zoom out view. I know that's tough to read, but basically what I've built for you all is a template spreadsheet that I can share with every member in the group or anyone that I need to share this with. And all it does is you'll see some fields marked in like this yellowish color. These are the fields that you would fill out based off your data. So say, for instance, I taught or as a principal at a school and I had 100 teachers. And at the end of the 22-23 year, I had 15 that left. you'll see that as I start to fill this in, it automatically starts to populate certain cells and it starts to color code things. So if I had 15 teachers leave, that gave me a generalized attrition of 15% for that year. Then I also gave us a way to look at that data a little more closely because, say, for instance, 6 of those people retired. Well, there's nothing you can do about retirements. Retirements are going to happen. You know what I mean? But then we also have involuntary separation, voluntary separation, and I defined all of these terms over in the side. I don't want to try to read to you all, especially since as a math teacher, reading out loud is not necessarily my strength. But you put some stuff in here and it'll start to color code. You can see your biggest reason will be the darkest, and then it color codes down to green. The other fields I put on here that aren't directly shown by this, but as the person that also built the exit survey, I can tell you, are the first 5 years of teachers and teachers in their last 5 years. These are the most dynamic groups of teachers in your building. So teachers in the first 5 years, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of like 20% are likely to become attrition just of their own choice. So it's worth knowing the sample size of that group. So let's say I put 10, and then same deal, the next most dynamic group as to leaving are your teachers in your last 5 years, because sometimes they will choose to take early retirement. So say you had 12. And then you'll see at the bottom, I have tabs for every single year, which I have gone ahead and put some just random numbers in so that we can see at the end. And then on the very last tab, there is what I call the comparison tool. And what this does, it allows you to take a look at a year at a glance. And same deal here. So you'll see the total number of teachers you had every year, the numbers that left by year, your attrition rate for your school by that year, and then it color codes inside each column as to what was your biggest year for that subset of data. And it'll give you a average at the bottom of that bottom row. And really the idea behind this is it just gives you a chance to sit down and think about your data and have it all nicely organized in one little place, because it's a little bit easier to address why perhaps I've got 5 involuntary separations in 22-23 versus voluntary separations also move to different schools and districts. I know there's only certain things you can affect, but it's worth knowing whenever you go to start doing the hiring and retention process, in my mind at least. So I rambled a whole lot just there. I'm happy to take any questions or receive any feedback. Like I said, I just wanted to build something that you all could use to make your lives a little bit easier. That's my only goal here.
Well, Mr. Edwards, I will say that I appreciate you putting this together. I know that having the data is important. I know a lot of us are thinking, okay, we've got the data, now what? And I think that's what's coming up next. But having those numbers to look at gives you a clear picture about what kind of direction you're heading, where you need to apply the most programs or put the most attention. And so I think this is a great tool to utilize. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Edwards? Will this tool will we be able to manipulate it in any way? Like, can we add columns for, say, like if we want to put in our own data as far as the impact surveys, KSA data, just so we can make comparisons every year, just to see, just to be able to make correlations by chance of certain years. We can tell our impact survey, data is low this year. Obviously, we had it on high. Is that something that you could add or we could add to it? Maybe
I'm sorry, I am having a tough time hearing you.
Oh, my bad. Well, I'm working off a weak microphone here, so I was wondering, will we be able to manipulate that document or that Excel sheet ourselves when we get that? Or is there a way that you could add a column that we could be able to input the impact survey data, just so that we can see correlations?
Sure. So realistically, when I share it with you, I was probably going to make it where it'd be tougher for you all to add columns. That said, I can leave it open. The issue you'll run into is if you start manipulating the stuff, I've done a whole lot of built-in formulas onto the sheet. And if you don't know how to do like Excel coding and write functions for Excel the way Excel likes them, you might run into some issues. That said, I'm more than happy to, I can do it for the entire group or a specific school. Like if you see something that's not on there that you would like on there, and either I can do it for the group or your school specifically, I'm happy to meet with you and discuss how you'd like that to look and to build it onto there. Like I said, I do a lot of things inside OELE, but I'm also kind of our tech type person to a degree, and I love building stuff like this, especially if it's going to be used. So I'm happy to augment or manipulate the spreadsheet in any way that would work best for you, because at the end of the day, like I said, I want it to be something for you all, not that you have to do. You know what I mean?
Right. Thank you.
This is Gico Ross. I was going to hold my comment, but I like the tool as it is. However, I do think that that connection that he just made is important, because one item or thought that I had about the tool is how it could possibly be used as an evaluative tool toward a principal that could be even adversely affecting their performance ratings if you have some issues with retention that aren't necessarily correlated to anything of your doing. So having I think that feedback from the survey could help to explain the why versus just looking at the raw data standing alone. You don't always get that opportunity to give the full picture sometimes. And if my data is presented and I'm not there to tell my story, that would at least help to kind of give a little bit of a buffer when you have maybe a few more red columns than what you'd like.
Absolutely. Well, I could easily put all the domains from Impact onto the sheet by year. And then the easiest way would be to leave those domains to where they're fillable, like the other fields are, to where you could then look at your impact by year data and fill it in yourself. I'm not saying it's impossible for me to build something where it scrapes that data automatically, but that would be a lot more of a lift. It would be a lot faster turnaround. How about that? If you all were comfortable entering the domains from the Impact website onto the sheet. But I can definitely do that for you. Absolutely.
And Justin, I just wanted to reiterate, and certainly this was just built as a service, as a tool for you all to use or not. Once Justin sends out the version of the spreadsheet and you save it to your own computers, the department will have no access to it. So this isn't something that we will ever see again. So you all can use it or not. This is not something that we will have any way to view. Just wanted to clarify that.
And principals will be able to find it on the P3 website? Or where will they find it to use it?
We have shared it.
The intention is that, yes, Stacy will share it with the PrAC members, and then you all are welcome to share it with your colleagues.
Yeah, I like the idea of including the KSA data as well. I don't know, again, if you could do fill-in columns like that as well. But again, to get a clear picture, I think Gico was on the right track there, having that information can be good or bad, but I think having it is important. So I think we can handle filling in columns.
Awesome.
All right. Appreciate you guys and the work you're doing. I know I'll be kind of rotating off the committee, but I'd love to have a copy of that to utilize for myself, Ms. Noah, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
All right, this takes us to a shout out to Dr. Petrie. What you have here is a little retention video that he created that I viewed, and it is fantastic. Ms. Noah, are we going to show this video? Or are we just going to talk about this video?
Yeah, we were just planning to talk about it. And the reason we want to talk about it is we want to recruit others to make some of these short video clips just like he did. So I'll advance so you can see the request there, Mr. Ehrenberg.
For sure. Well, I watched the video and I thought my sound was off because he's talking in sign language. He is one of the principals for the School of the Deaf, and so he is doing a little retention recruitment video for people and his staff, but doing it in a medium that he understands and speaks to his population. So I think it's an excellent way to involve your staff and to talk about the strategies that you're using to support teacher retention, to give other principals ideas. And so the goal here is for us to have some principals that are going to talk about some of the successes that they've seen or strategies that they utilize to create retention within your schools or within your district. I know the specific things they point out here. I don't like reading word for word from the slides. You guys can read those, but the goal is going to be to create videos that we can then share out with other principals to gain some ideas, to build that camaraderie and steal ideas from each other to make our own schools and our own districts successful. So if you have those and you can complete them, you can turn them into Mrs. Noah, I believe, or Mrs. Noah, is that how we're going to handle it?
Yes. Yeah, you can just email me and share your willingness. And we don't want you to feel any external pressure on making them perfect. It's just, just real stuff. And, 30 seconds to a minute is all we're asking. But we're wanting to each month share out a retention strategy developed or shared by one of you all on the PrAC in our P3 newsletter. So if you could help us out with that, we would love to have as many volunteers as possible take part.
And I'll just real quick say for my own staff, any new staff that I have, typically after the first week of school, I bring them in and I have a little Q&A session with them at the end of the school day. It's typically on a Friday. And so, they're itching to get out, but it's a quick 2 or 3 questions. How do you feel? What staff have you made connections with? And what are you most excited about for the school year? And then when they come out of the room that we're in, we have the whole staff out there kind of just welcoming you made it through your first week. Congratulations, and cheering them on. It's a nice little belonging exercise for the school and lets them know that everybody's on their side. So one of the good things that we do here. So moving on to our retention tool review.
Good morning. My name is Crystal Rowland, and I'm the Director of Academic Program Standards in the Office of Teaching and Learning. We know that schools and districts are working to implement high-quality instructional resources, and we've had leaders ask how they can measure the effectiveness of their implementation to ensure that their HQIR is positively impacting the student experience and learning outcomes. So in response, the Office of Teaching and Learning created the Curriculum Implementation Monitoring Toolkit, which just launched in November. I'm going to hand it off to Misty Higgins and Fox Demoisey, who are professional learning coordinators in the Office of Teaching and Learning, to provide a closer look at the toolkit and its components.
Thank you and good morning. Is everybody seeing my screen okay? Yeah, okay. So we're going to be thinking about just monitoring curriculum implementation and the vital part that plays within supporting continuous improvement. And then we're going to be looking at the new resource we have to do that, the Curriculum Implementation Monitoring Toolkit. And we have resources for local districts to support adoption of high quality instructional resources as a part of a local curriculum and effective implementation of resources in curriculum, and then the curriculum-based professional learning that all of that requires. And so this really rounds that out and starts to provide a suite of tools for monitoring those pieces and really making sure they're delivering on the promise of a strong local curriculum grounded in high quality instructional resources. So to introduce this tool, it has a couple of different parts. So you're going to see when you have a chance to get into the toolkit, there's an introduction just to what is its origin, how did it come to be, why did it come to be, what is the purpose of the toolkit. And then you're going to get into what are the key aspects for monitoring curriculum implementation. And it's going to establish 6 key aspects and then invite you to think of them as an interactive ecosystem. So how do these things we're monitoring within that space really interact and how do we engage them? Then you're going to get an overview of recommended tools for monitoring each of those aspects, recommendations for how to use those monitoring tools within a district and within the buildings of the district. And then bringing it all together, a sample annual monitoring calendar with support for processing and responding to data and really making those findings to where you can act upon them and intervene. So thinking almost in terms of sort of the problems of practice as we think about the different parts of the toolkit. So really getting at that rationale piece, if we take up the question, why do we need to monitor HQIR implementation and what is the importance of that ongoing monitoring? We're going to think about that here briefly next. So if you've been in any sessions with Misty and me before, you've likely seen this image. And what we do is we use it to really set that trajectory of local curriculum work from a common instructional vision for what teaching and learning should optimally look like within a given content area, all the way to the far right of those ultimate impacts we would hope to see from that vision: improve student experience and vibrant learning, and then improve student outcomes, those measurable academic gains. So we often talk about those elements 2 through 4, those sort of gray spaces in between as the bridge work that takes you from vision to impact, looking at affording true access to the local curriculum, supporting that with high quality professional learning, and then really having all of that produce high quality instruction. What the toolkit is going to allow is making the parts of that bridge that's going to take us there measurable, so we can see structure by structure within that bridge, how well is it functioning, how reliable is it going to be to really deliver us where we want to go. So that's where you're going to see the toolkit helping make some of those pieces measurable. So within that space, what should we be monitoring? And here we're just going to look briefly at the key aspects for monitoring curriculum implementation. So what are the parts of that bridge, so to speak? Or if we shift metaphors within the ecosystem, what are the parts of that ecosystem that we need to get a bead on to see and make sure that the whole of it is functioning well? So I'm going to invite you, and hopefully everybody is able to, with whatever your screen is, kind of lean in and get a good look. So we have a screenshot from the toolkit itself capturing those 6 aspects for monitoring curriculum implementation. I'm going to invite you just to do a brief skim and scan, kind of making your way through it. And you'll notice it's sort of set up like a flow chart. So as you sort of work your way through, just notice what stands out to you about these 6 aspects, and then those sort of dynamic relationships between them. So I'll give you just a couple of moments, and then when you're ready, if you have a thought, a question, a connection, if you'd like to, you can go ahead and put that in the chat, or if you'd like to comment aloud, you can unmute it and share. So just what's standing out to you as you sort of visually work your way through these 6 aspects?
I can appreciate the fact, this is Gico Ross. I can appreciate the fact that it kind of takes away some of the unspoken rules that we know exist and put it in black and white narrative so that, for instance, particularly when you're in the seat of the principal, sometimes you're not always able to say, if you don't have a safe space to be able to say what needs to be said when it comes to curriculum decisions. But when we start looking at number 1, the system conditions, that's a very, very important part of really trying to implement HQIR when you've had a system of doing things, and this is how we've always done it. And the HQIR may say, that's not how we're doing things. And you have to have that buy-in from the whole district in order to implement in this new way. We're kind of going through some of those ebbs and flows right now. where you may have even had a certain strategy that district wide has been paramount to your success, and this is how we do school here. And as you implement your new HQIR, that may be a thing of yesteryear, and having to navigate those relationships with our educators, their own personal experiences and thoughts about that. It can be tough. So I really like this as a flow chart to be able to use to put that into some layman's terms, if you will.
Thank you. Yeah, that brings a couple things to mind, that it could really make things that were maybe unknown or invisible known and visible, which, like, as you said, then allows us to talk about them and to begin to speak to them. And then this is probably similar to the dynamics of maybe other initiatives that a district and the buildings would implement, but HQIR also has its unique sort of differences. And so it really helps us see what's similar and what's different about sort of this implementation ecosystem specific to HQIR. Any other thoughts, questions, connections before we? Oh yeah, the mindsets. Yes, absolutely. And we're learning more and more nationally. And then as this work happens in Kentucky, just how vitally important educator mindsets are, both leaders and teachers. How do we know what they are? How do we monitor them? How do we move them? And how do we know we've moved them?
I have a question. And I don't know if it's my old eyes, I can't see, but with us being a state that has a legally mandated criterion reference summative assessment, where's the room to ensure congruence with the resource and the Kentucky academic standards?
So within the monitoring toolkit, the alignment between the high quality instructional resources and our Kentucky academic standards is something that we support districts in considering all the way as they're evaluating potential materials that they might adopt, and then as they implement, crosswalking to make sure where our standards covered in their entirety, where might we have some gaps and differences that we need to address over time as we implement. So there's not as much looking for that in particular within the toolkit itself and that monitoring, but really checking for that and establishing, maintaining that alignment happens throughout the process from adoption all the way through implementation. So that is supported in the implementation process, even if there's not a particular tool in the toolkit to check from that vantage for monitoring it. You'll notice when you get into the toolkit, those outcomes at the end, you can see the student outcomes. The KSA is absolutely, so we don't, those outcomes sort of are what they are, whether they're the outcomes, the local data outcomes, outcomes from diagnostics and screeners, and outcomes from KSA. So those data points already exist. We're really looking at what are the data points sort of feeding into those that we can monitor and intervene with to make sure outcomes, summative outcomes like KSA, really land where we'd like them to land. I hope that answers your question.
And Fox, if I could kind of add to that. So the first portion would be the curriculum development process, which includes like evaluating and selecting your resource. But there's also that time of bringing your teacher teams together to review the resource and the standards to map out your local curriculum document. And that's where you would identify if there are gaps and where you would need to bring in other pieces to make sure you have full coverage of standards. But most HQIR are about 80% or more aligned to our Kentucky academic standards, specifically for reading and math. So that should be a relatively light lift on that side. So once that work is completed, now we're in implementation. How are we monitoring how that is going?
Hi, this is Peggy Sinclair Morris from the Kentucky School for the Blind. Again, I haven't looked through the toolkit completely yet, but had a question if it addresses alternate standards. We're a fully special ed school. Not all our kids are on alternate assessment, but wondering if that's included in the toolkit.
So the tools of the toolkit could be repurposed for other contexts. Specifically, it was developed for content areas that have high quality instructional resources. So thinking about reading, writing, math, and science. But whenever you're thinking about a common local curriculum, the this sort of approach to thinking about monitoring and some of these tools could potentially be repurposed to be usable in some of those other spaces as well. But again, any on the team who would like to weigh in on that also.
Thank you.
Okay, well, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it forward to Misty.
So once we have a better understanding then of what it is that we need to monitor, the next question the toolkit is trying to answer is, well, how do we monitor those key aspects? And so for each tool for each aspect in the toolkit, we've developed a specific tool to help you monitor that area. And I do just want to take a moment to kind of provide, it's going to be a pretty high level, quick overview for you, but some of these tools you may recognize already because they're a part of our HQIR implementation resources that we've had for a bit. So just quickly starting with aspect 1 in systems conditions. Again, this is a tool you may likely recognize. You're going to see it's all about the curriculum implementation framework. And this is one that kind of looks at the tactical side, the more logistical side of implementation, where it's going to lay out the key responsibilities broken down by role group for each of the 3 stages of curriculum implementation. And you can see there's a column specifically for the principal. What is the role that they're going to play? What are those key responsibilities they need to address to really set those system conditions? So this tool can be used a lot of different ways. Specifically in the toolkit, it's to help schools and districts just diagnostically locate where are we in implementation of a resource, and then what are the most critical next steps that we need to take, those responsibilities we need to address to keep this work moving forward. And then you can see on key aspect 2, we've developed 3 tools to support monitoring of curriculum-based professional learning, which is kind of a new idea for us in the field. So the first one is just a feedback form that you can give to teachers and leaders after any type of CBPL, whether it's a workshop, a PLC, or even a coaching interaction. But the other 2 tools, they really support monitoring of what we feel are the 2 most critical types or structures for CBPL: shared learning workshops, and then intellectual preparation within PLCs. And collectively, the research is showing that these 2 types of curriculum-based professional learning are so critical in maximizing the impact of the HQIR and then the educator use of it in classroom instruction. So for many of us, I'll also say curriculum-based professional learning is new. And in some of the early feedback we were getting in the creation of this, leaders said it was just helpful to even look at those tools to get a sense of what should be happening in those 2 places when it's a shared learning workshop versus what's happening in PLCs when you have an HQIR. And then for classroom instruction, aspect 3, again, this is one that you may recognize as well, because the tool here is our instructional practice guides, or what we call the IPGs for short. We have them for reading and writing, math and science. There's even one for foundational skills. And these are just common observation tools looking for effective instruction aligned to the instructional shifts that our standards are calling for and built into the design of HQIRs. And we often say this is probably one of the most important areas to really monitor, because it's where everything prior is coming together, and it's that last stop before the student experience and student outcomes. Aspects 4 and 5, I'll just quickly say we've developed some surveys based on national models there that you can use to monitor those teacher and leader mindsets. And there's also one to just see how the students are feeling their perspective on the classroom learning experience. I want you all to know that when you open those, it'll force a copy because they're Google forms, and that way you can make adjustments, modifications to those as needed to fit your local context. And then finally, Fox mentioned this earlier, you're going to notice aspect 6 is grayed out because there's not going to be a specific tool in the toolkit, because that's going to be based on the assessments that you are using at the local level from your diagnostic screeners and those curriculum embedded assessments. And then on the next page of the toolkit, it's just going to provide you some recommendations for actual use of each of the tools that I talked about. It's going to be information around like what's the process for using this tool? What might be some recommendations regarding when and how often we should gather data using a tool? And then for the surveys, it's really looking at what we know from research is the ideal response rate that's going to be a large enough sample size to allow us to draw some conclusions from. And then finally, the last question for the last page of the toolkit that it's trying to address is, well, then how do we put this all together? So what you're going to find on that last page of the toolkit is first a sample calendar. That's just going to show if you were to use the tools based on the recommendations, how might that lay out across the school year? And I think an important note that we want to point out here, lots of different ways that you could choose to use this toolkit. You might use it holistically at first just to do a stock take of where are we in implementation, or you might use it to just focus in on very specific aspects that you know are an area of need that might be something to address to increase your implementation effectiveness of the HQIR. And then in the red oval there, you're going to see it just also includes some resources, anything from helping you set goals and develop an aligned monitoring plan based on the aspects, to then thinking about, well, how are we going to analyze that gathered data across the school year and when might we gather it to determine where progress is being made, identify and solve for challenges emerging, and then just make adjustments to support that continuous improvement. Because at the end of the day, I think you all know this, an HQIR is not some kind of silver bullet. It's a tool that we can really use effectively to then ultimately impact what's happening in the student experience and outcomes. And so with that, we just quickly want to close with a couple of questions. So I know that was a kind of high level overview, but just initially, what are you seeing as some possible implications for use of the toolkit? And even more importantly, like how else might we support you in this work, whether it's the monitoring of the HQIR or HQIR implementation more generally? So again, feel free, you can put thinking in the chat or feel free to unmute.
So it's Bonnie Spears. I would say that one of the things, again, this is great. I don't think I've seen this before, if it has been part of that toolkit or not, but connecting that, I've looked at the flow chart, but that we were just looking at, but making those connections between that flow chart and this, but also providing that important feedback aspect of making sure that we're capturing that educator mindset, because if they're able to provide that feedback, and even through, as I was just kind of listening, thinking about our PLC observation tool, we refine those, you know, every so often. We're always reflecting on what we can do better from a leadership standpoint, but also our PLCs. And so connecting that, those are two pieces right now that we just talked about in this last week after looking at KSA data and making some shifts for different things that we need in our building. So I like how that connects right with the resources that are a part of this toolkit, how we look at those highly qualified instructional resources. So that's exactly what we were just talking about. So it's nice to see that put together here.
Thank you. Yes, Brian, and I agree. And I really think that if, you know, this is new for a lot of us with trying to implement HQIRs. And I will tell you all, we have seen the principal role be the most important. Like really the effect and impact of an HQIR, it's a make or break with the principal. That's just what we're seeing. You all play the most important role in that. And so any way that we can support you in doing that work in your school, please don't hesitate to reach out. We'll stay on for a few minutes in case people want to keep putting questions in the chat. There are emails if you would like to reach out to us that way. But Stacy, we don't want to take more of the meeting time. So thank you all so much.
Thank you. We appreciate your time. All right, this moves us on to our Ed Camp with Keith Cresser.
Hey, everybody. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate the time. And PrAC, I appreciate you allowing me to speak just a little bit about Ed Camp. Ed Camp is quickly approaching. It is January 14th, which is a Wednesday, early next month. And with the Christmas break coming up quickly, it's right upon us. But I would love for you to consider attending Ed Camp. This is our 10th annual Ed Camp, and many of you have hopefully attended it before. It's an online conference, and we have breakout rooms, and then we have keynote speakers throughout the day. Last year, we had about 375 or so school leaders who attended Ed Camp. The year before that, it was a snow day for like 90% of the state. So we had more like 750 people that were able to join. But if you can come all day, or if you can only come for a portion of the day, we would love for you to attend Ed Camp. In the chat, I'm going to put links to a couple of things. One is to register for Ed Camp. That's the first link. The second link is for if you would like to present a breakout room session. Our breakout room sessions are 35 to 40-minute sessions. And kind of what Fox and Misty just did is a breakout session at Ed Camp. Just a presentation of something that has been successful for you and your school, and something that you would be willing to share with other folks throughout the state. We usually have 8 or 9 breakout rooms going on at the same time. And so the folks who attend Ed Camp can choose which one they want to attend. And that's what you'll see on the third link. And I'm actually going to try to share my screen. All right, so now I think you can see the Ed Camp grid. This is the grid from last year so that you can kind of see how Ed Camp works. We start off in the morning, I do an introduction, and then last year we had Dr. Fletcher that gave the welcome. I'm hoping he can do that again. He does have a meeting that is at 10 o'clock. So it's still up in the air whether he can do our welcome or not. We had Lou Young was our morning keynote last year, and then you can see we had breakout sessions. You can also see that on this grid, which you have the link to in the chat, once you hop on there, you can click on this video. For most of the sessions, we were able to record them and share the video out. So if there's something on this grid that interests you, you can see what was shared last year. Dr. Rocky Wallace, who spoke earlier in this PrAC meeting, had a session last year. We always appreciate his support. And then last year, our midday keynote was Joe Sanfilippo, Go Crickets, who does the 1 minute morning walk to work. And on Twitter, many of you, I'm sure, have heard of him. And then we had some more breakout spaces. And you can see we've got several folks who have already committed to leading a breakout session, but there's plenty of room for more. And so if you are able to and have something that would be great to share with the rest of the group, we would love for you to consider doing that for this year's Ed Camp. And Stacy, I think that's all that I have. Unless someone has a question about Ed Camp, I'd be glad to answer.
Keith, I mentioned in the chat, the first 2 links aren't working for me. I don't know if anybody else had an opportunity to try. I was able to access last year's link, but not the 2 for this year.
Okay, I'll put those in there again. Sorry about that.
No worries. Anybody else questions? All right, then that takes us to our certification structure content discussion with Todd Davis.
Good morning. Thank you, Brian. Good morning, everyone. It's good to see everyone. Welcome to all the new members. And for those that are at the end of your service, sorry to see you go, but thank you for that service as well, and appreciate what you do on a daily basis. But today I wanted to share some information. We have a certification structure work group. And I'll share a little bit about how that process started and where we have transitioned to. But then at the end of our session, we'll have a time to break out into some smaller discussion rooms and really encourage you to provide your feedback. So this will help guide our conversations as we move forward in January with the larger work group. Share my screen. Somebody can give me a thumbs up when you can see it. Thank you. All right, as I mentioned, we have a certification work group. Last fall, the Education Professional Standards Board approved a process and work group to really dig into our certification structure, looking at the grade bands and so forth to see if we're meeting the needs of our districts. And so in December of last year, we established this larger group, over 30 participants. And as you can see, we have principals, teachers, we have school counselors, human resource directors. We have 3 sitting legislators on this as well as KDE staff and our educator preparation providers as well. This group, again, was charged with looking at starting with the grade bands. And over a 6-month period of time, we came back in June and made a recommendation to the EPSB to make some slight changes to our current structure to better align with other states, but then more in line with what our configurations look like across the state, which vary drastically. So again, these are recommendations. These have not been accepted by the board yet or approved by the board. So the next step is what we're going to discuss here in just a little bit, but we'll look forward to that in the future potentially. The recommendation that the work group made was to keep preschool and kindergarten the same, just for the simple fact if they were to expand up to even a P6 or a P5, that would create some challenges with the preparation because you're dealing with the interdisciplinary, which is the special populations, but then also the preschool, the early childhood standards, but then elementary. And so that's a huge task to do and prepare new teachers in a timely manner, and the cost had to be considered as well. The one thing that they did encourage the board to consider was to add a route for an endorsement for those preschool teachers to add grades 1 through 3. So that was an addition to a new addition to the, or would be a new addition to the current structure. Elementary, we have a caveat right now. We're K5, and we have 2 caveats where grade 6 can be taught by a K5 teacher if it's in the same building as 5th grade or if it's self-contained. And so the work group felt like that was an easy shift just to add that 1 year and make that a full-time option for elementary teachers. For middle school, again, a slight change based on the fact that elementary schools tend to departmentalize starting at 4th grade. They felt like it would be a benefit to allow middle school teachers to teach their content down to 4th grade to allow them to serve in those settings as well, if needed. So again, they would have to be certified in that content area, whether it be math, English, social studies, or science, in order to teach that. So it'd be a slight change for our elementary schools in scheduling, but not in practice. And then in secondary, again, based on the fact that many of our school districts are starting to transition specifically Algebra 1 and geometry down to 8th grade. And now we're starting to hear more comments about even moving at least Algebra 1 down to offered at 7th grade level. Then this would allow for that transition a little bit more easily as well. So that is our recommendations that we made. The pre-KK keep staying the same with the endorsement, the K6, 4-9, and 7-12. So as we moved forward after June, we asked the board for us to consider letting us continue this discussions because one of the first things that came up in our initial meetings was more related to permissions and content areas. And so we had to decide where our issues centered around the grade bands and address those, but then now we're transitioning to the discussions around those content areas. Specifically, science is the most common one, and obviously at the high school level, requiring the specialization. So as you see on this slide here, the NCTQ has conducted a survey or a study across the nation and looked at how states address the sciences in general at the high school level. Tennessee, which is much like Kentucky, requires that specific certification to teach that content. So you essentially have to major in that content area. But then Colorado does things a little differently where they offer general science much like what we do with middle school, and then they can teach any content at the high school level. Now, there are 30 states across the nation that offer some type of general certificate. How that operates in practice is varies drastically. Some states do a mix, and some states limit what a general science teacher can teach. And this, again, this slide demonstrates some of that. So currently where we are, just a reminder, I'm sure sitting in your seat, you know well where we are at this moment, but just want to reiterate, our sciences require that specific major: chemistry, physics, biology, and earth science. Special education is another area that we have a lot of shortage needs for our openings for hire, particularly the moderate to severe. There has been discussion around potentially considering a comprehensive certificate for LBD and MSD. However, with federal requirements and the increased awareness of autism and just some of the changes that have been made over the last probably 10 years with special education, really puts an emphasis on the separation of the two. So there are several challenges with that in preparation, but then also considering what that might do to culture, which we'll talk about here in just a little bit as well. And then middle school and high school math. And so math is approached a little bit differently in the discussion, where science certifications or science courses are not set up as sequentially as mathematics. The barrier that most schools have expressed concern about is that a middle school teacher can teach Algebra 1 and algebra or geometry to ninth grade students, and while the content doesn't change, they're not permitted to teach at the 10th, 11th, or 12th grade level. And so to consider that. So again, looking at permissions versus the certification as a whole, but then trying to figure out how we could possibly provide some relief in that manner. So comparing to just a few of our states that are around us, West Virginia, they are very similar to us in structure when it comes to the sciences. However, they do offer a general science. However, their general science is very limited. It essentially leads to potentially 1 to 2 courses for that general science teacher, and it is typically taught at the ninth grade level. And so they are very interested in how we transition and want to consider, those discussions. Their special education actually breaks out into more categories than what we offer here in Kentucky. However, they are starting the comprehensive special education certificate. They have not fully implemented that, so those that are pursuing that certificate are currently within the program and have not completed it. So they're not aware at this point how that impacts one preparation, but then ultimately the services that are provided. And then in math, they specialize more in the Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and geometry certifications, but then also offer a comprehensive that allows a broader and more intensive, like calculus and higher level math courses. Tennessee is very, very similar to what we do. Again, the sciences are identical. They require the specialization. The math, again, is very similar. They do have a grade band that's slightly different. But then their special education, while similar, they break their what we would consider LBD into 2 grade levels or 2 grade bands of the K-8 and 6-12. The special education comprehensive is to help address those with more severe or more intense needs. And then Illinois looks on paper like they specialize, which they do, but then they also allow each of those certificates to teach the other content. So a biology teacher can teach all science courses. Chemistry can teach all, and so on. So they approach it through the permissions rather than through the actual credential. And then their special education structure is set up a little bit differently. They have more of a comprehensive, but it's certificate, but it's more based on the needs of the student. And so those with more intense needs require that level 2, which they have specialized endorsements from that manner. So still trying to get some information from them to find out how this actually works in practice for them, and if it's helped address their shortage areas. So we're getting ready to break out into some of our discussion rooms here in just a few minutes. And as I mentioned before, we truly want your feedback. We will focus on the sciences today, but towards the end of the discussion, have an opportunity to share some others. This is an abbreviated version of what we typically do, but more than happy if you're interested to get feedback on all contents and practices through multiple modes, and we'll talk about that at the end. But some things to consider in your conversation today as you're being led through your discussion. Consider the preparation. What does this look like at the second or post-secondary level? Looking at our majors, are we asking too much of our science teachers as far as they're required to take a full chemistry major or for a full physics major, which makes them highly unlikely in most cases to pursue teaching and not the science field. Looking at ways that we could potentially serve or provide dual majors, but then in years past, they off recognized minors. Should we consider those as well? Certification, looking again at the comprehensive versus or generalized versus the specialized. Permissions, is this something we can address through permissions? As we mentioned, like the math, there are things we consider for the sciences or even special education for that matter. And then future impact, what are the consequences, whether they're intentional or unintentional? If we don't think about those ahead of time, then we may make an adjustment from one extreme to the other because it looks good on paper, but then has a negative impact 5 to 10 years down the road. So how does this comprehensive approach or general science certificate impact your teacher's performance? Are they prepared when they enter the classroom? And then ultimately student performance. If they're not receiving the information or don't receive quality information and instruction, then how does that impact them? But then the culture. This is another aspect we have to consider, is that if we move to a general certificate, how does that impact your teachers? And for those that want to continue to specialize and may be forced in some cases to teach all contents, and specifically the special education, that tends to be the feedback that we've preliminary feedback we've gotten here recently, is that we may create more of a problem than what we're trying to solve. So we're going to take some time now to break out in these rooms. And Stacy, we're going to end up going to 11:45 just so you've got a little bit more time. But again, please provide your feedback. We'll have some time to share out at the end. When you get into your groups, I'm asking that one of you in each of the groups volunteer to share out at the end. We'll just share out the top 2 to 3 things that your group discussed, and then we'll wrap up for the day. So Stacey, I'll turn it over to you and let you lead to the breakout rooms.
All right. And I sent out a copy of the questions that we're going to be discussing in our breakout rooms to all the PrAC members. I think it was yesterday or day before. Do you have the link accessible, Todd, that we could put that in the chat for the questions? If not, everyone should have them. And
Stacey, I put all the questions in there.
Great. Oh, okay. Perfect. Thank you, Keith. Thank you. All right. So we will go ahead and open up our breakout rooms, and we're going to have until 11:45 Eastern time. We'll come back out large group. Each breakout room needs to have a designated PrAC member to share out the discussion points. So here we go.
All right, so we've got about a little over 12 minutes. So I want to be respectful of your time. And for one, great conversations that I was listening in on. So one, I appreciate that. But if you will, I know we identified someone to share out. Briefly share maybe the two top ideas or two thoughts, concerns, challenges that your group discussed. And we'll start with group one.
I believe that's us. So the top challenge was we discussed how specialized degrees have multiple opportunities. And so why would they teach when they have those opportunities? Sometimes it just, to spend that much on a college degree and then to have student loans. We also talked about the opportunity for second careers or people that want to be to use that degree that they have, but then that comes with its own challenges as to whether or not a person has the art of teaching, the capacity to teach in a class when they have a specialized degree. We also discussed sometimes people just need a change of pace. And so a generalized degree or certification would offer the ability for those people to move classrooms or content areas. And we also talked about how that might also allow for, at the high school level, teachers to embed with CTE programs or have those future science levels that are not yet developed. It could allow that teacher to explore things that are more interesting even to them as those fields become available. And then finally, we talked about the praxis alignment and how, maybe that's something that can be reviewed, and I'm sure it is. But how that, what are we assessing for those prep teachers? And it was an excellent opportunity for us to talk, so I appreciated that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ginger. All right, room two.
We talked about when teachers have to get a different certification, we're adding to the workload and really having them jump through hoops to get specialized, but then we can use emergencies. We can emergency certify individuals. And then, of course, using a person that has emergency certification limits the amount of time, makes it difficult. Some schools have had to use online platforms to have companies come in and teach their class and use an instructional aide to be the person that, or a staff member to be the person that monitors that class while somebody outside of the school teaches that class. People have used, relied on retired teachers. We talked about a general science certification provide relief. There could be issues that arise with dual credit and advanced placement classes, but general science would provide relief in other classes. We talked about there was conversation related to MSD and special ed, and I shared, like, my district several years ago, we only had 2 MSD units or classrooms in our district, and now we are on the verge of having 5, and there are no there are very few MSD teachers, and not being able to, and talking about the difference of LBD and MSD certification and what that prep looks like. But then we also talked before we went to the breakout section, somebody mentioned the prep work related to autism, but we have lots of kiddos that are serviced under autism that aren't in those specialized classes. And so that's not always we service many of our LBD teachers service kids that are service under special or under autism as well. And we talked about just being careful to protect our educational profession by making sure that the people that we are putting in classrooms are the most qualified.
Okay. Thank you, sir. And room 3.
Is that ours?
I want to say yes.
Yes, it is. It is.
Okay, I couldn't remember our numbers, Stacy. That's why I was trying to check. We were just, I mean, as a high school principal, I'm really excited about, if there is the possibility to doing the general science certification just for, we were talking about the possibilities to ease up some movement on the master schedule as you need it, and in history, and I can only speak for our specific sequence. Y'all's may be some variation of the same, but we have world history, U.S. history, and integrated social studies. Math, we have algebra 1, geometry, algebra 2, English, obviously English 1, 2, 3, 4. And science is the only one that has that specialized area. So it makes it challenging at times, like if you're going to hire someone and you have already have a solid biology teacher and you have 2 science applicants, one gets terrible recommendations, but they teach chemistry, and the other one is a biology, and you already have that one. So just situations like that. I know that all high school people probably deal with that, and just finding them, and math has that general certification as well, but we still can't find those. So I don't know how impactful it would be as far as the depth of the pool of people that are coming out to do that, but it did seem like it would make it a lot easier from the school administration side, master scheduling, stuff like that. Then we also talked about some turnover in the MSD programs and kind of what a challenging area that is to fill because of the job requirements, in that area you're talking about specialized medical needs like feeding tubes or seizures or kind of some violent behaviors for students or, changing what are basically adult size students that may not want to be changed. So that makes it challenging to fill positions in those. And we talked about even as crazy it may sound to say in education, but like hazard pay or some kind of a stipend for those people in those positions, which I know has helped. And like our SPED instructional assistants, they are paid better than our regular instructional assistants because they're classified as either special ed or regular ed instructional assistants. So I mean, it does work. We've had some people leave some certified or classified positions to go do instructional assistant in the heavy need area like MSD because of some financial incentives. So just a plethora of some issues that we all have to deal with on the regular basis. But like I said, I was excited when I saw on the agenda and heard Mr. Davis talking about if there is that possibility of the general science certification. I think that could be huge.
Thanks, Jared. So as you can see with this discussion, it is not a one size fits all or silver bullet approach, unfortunately. And so a lot of things to consider. But one thing I do want to share with you in some of the conversation with, especially in the preparation realm, is that our ed prep folks have been very supportive in how we may approach this while still providing quality science teachers, potentially and looking at what a major is, creating maybe an education major for the sciences, specifically, for those contents. But then also doing a general science with a concentration area, which would then allow them to move on and take their master's courses and complete those degrees that are needed for the AP/dual credit type of thing. So just something to throw out there just so that you're aware those are part of the discussion. But I will share with Stacy the slide deck again so that she can share with each of you our contact information, myself and Sharon Salzman, my assistant director. Our contact information is on there. Please feel free to reach out at any time. I'm happy to jump on a call if you want to, but want your feedback as far as, again, challenges, whether it be, for any content or if there are additional things you think we need to consider. So again, thank you for the time today and truly appreciate your feedback, and I hope you have a great rest of the short term here right before the Christmas break, but hope you each have a good holiday season. So thank you, and I'll turn it back over to Brian.
Thank you. All right, just a couple of quick reminders before we have our adjournment. The upcoming meeting in March of 2026, and there is a feedback form for today's meeting. If you don't mind to click on that link and give some feedback before you guys dip out to get to all the rest of the stuff you've been putting off today. I will entertain a motion for adjournment at this time.
Jared Hankins, Webster County. I'll make the motion to adjourn since it's my last meeting.
Thank you, sir. Do we have a second?
Jico Ross, I'll second.
Thank you. And please state your agreement in the chat there. I want to say it's been a pleasure serving with you guys, and enjoy the holiday season.